Hey, Andy.
Sorry, I thought I was hitting the unmute and I hit the hung up instead.
That's okay.
You know, the bright red button. You always push the bright red button.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet you, Andrew.
Nice to meet you. Trying to figure out how to share my screen. And I did this last time, and I'm trying to figure out, oh, there it is. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
So I was just starting to comment on the fact that there was a wide range of responses to my survey. Let me refresh to make sure that got them all in here. What platform you're interested in? So, a lot of people interested in Android. Most people interested in iOS. Similarly, interested in Apple Watch, Apple TV, and cross-platform game development. Biggest challenges people are having right now are lack of examples and tutorials, Java issues related to Android, time to experiment, like we all experience that from time to time, immaturity of Flow, the framework, the cross-platform iOS and Android development, and learning Cocoa. And then of all the topics, you can see that they're just all across the board. So hard to narrow it down, but I was thinking that maybe the first half of this we maybe dive into some hybrid app development. So maybe there is this framework called TurboLinks, which has a native iOS implementation, but it's written in Swift, which means we can't use it in RubyMotion. But I was thinking we could take a stab at starting to convert some of that to RubyMotion to be able to try that out. And
that would be interesting to see, converting a Swift library into RubyMotion.
Mm-hmm.
More and more, it seems the majority of people out there are writing CocoaPods in Swift, which of course makes them unavailable to run if you do need them in RubyMotion.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's probably some good ones that, you know, people will now and again think, you know, if only we had this in RubyMotion, it would be better for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard several people ask whether or not TurboLinks works with RubyMotion, and I know the answer is that it does not, because I've tried to do it because it's written in Swift. So I think, yeah, and I think that a lot of people are going to run into trying to convert their Objective-C or Swift examples into something that's compatible with RubyMotion. So being able to do that, I think, is a good skill to have. So probably a good thing for us to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other idea I had was continue on our motion game examples. We've been making some progress on getting an animated sprite to walk around the screen. And at the end of our last meetup, we were able to get the sprite to interact with something, so collide with some enemies or some good things, so we could continue down that path.
Yeah, I watched the YouTube video of the last meetup, because I forgot to add the meetup to my calendar, and so I forgot about it until after it was ongoing. And although my primary interest is not game programming, it was fascinating and useful to watch you guys work through some of the issues with what you were doing. Watching other people code, even if it's not adding something that you're particularly working on, always helps with the stuff that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. All right, well, then let's dive in. So I was just starting to go through this turbo links. Actually, before I start, what are you most interested in learning about?
Well, I've actually been starting out looking to build stuff, starting with iOS and Mac. I was the one respondent that said Mac OS. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of interest in it, but actually using RubyMotion for Mac OS is interesting because I have a lot of vested time in working with Ruby and Objective-C, although I can read it and stuff like that, doesn't appeal to me overly. So coming at it from the Apple framework side of the house, ultimately I would like to move into looking at the Android stuff as well, but I was putting that on the back burner until I was more had a better footing, I felt, on the Apple side. My background is primarily large corporate development, so I've been doing IT for decades, and you know I have, I don't know, 20 years of C and I don't know 10 plus years of Java, stuff like this. But Ruby is the language that I love. And if I have a choice, I work in Ruby. So that's where I've been coming from. So I mean, I'm not of the gamer generation and stuff like that. So you know, I wouldn't know where to start with those things. However, on the other hand, I have, you know, dabbled with Mac development in the past, not as much as I wanted to. And with the release of originally Mac Ruby and then RubyMotion, I'm much more interested in getting into that more strongly. So.
Okay.
But please continue with this. I also, I mean, a lot of the corporate stuff that I've done is often around web applications. I've built quite a few or worked on applications that were large web applications normally built in Java. Although I've led some teams that worked also in C# and stuff like that. And that's where I originally came. Although I do like a lot of Ruby, I mean, if I have a choice, and if I'm building anything for the web, I do it in Rails. Just because it's the fastest thing that I can build something in. Yeah. And so it's interesting that you picked up Turbo Links, because with the inclusion of Turbo Links in Rails 4, I haven't used it. I've heard a lot of stuff about it, both good and bad.
And actually, I should mention that Turbo Links underwent a major kind of rewrite. So there's the TurboLinks Classic, which is like the original version of TurboLinks.
Mm-hmm.
And then they like totally changed the idea behind it, but kept the same name. So TurboLinks.
Okay. I know with Rails 5, it's supposed to be dramatically different.
Mm-hmm.
And good. At least according to the Rails team release notes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't remember all of the differences, but I know that it takes a different approach, and I think it's designed more towards delivering hybrid apps. So
yeah.
Parts of your Rails app and embedding that into your native iOS or Android apps. So I was just starting to go through getting TurboLinks set up here. Its documentation examples here are in Swift. The interesting thing, I think, is that TurboLinks iOS is written in Swift, so we have to make some changes to make that compatible with RubyMotion, but the TurboLinks Android should just work out of the box with RubyMotion. I haven't tried it, so I don't know for sure, but I think there are less hurdles to overcome with that.
I would believe so, because if I understand, now I haven't built any Android applications, but I would imagine that any Java library that you include with the rest of the Java pieces, and then with the RubyMotion sort of layered on top calling into it, if it's in the Java class path, it should execute okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have all this Java development experience and absolutely no desire to write Java applications in Android.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I'm guessing I have to clone this in order to run the demo.
So this is meant for inclusion inside your iOS app to do the communication to whatever's running on the web server?
Yeah, basically the way it works is it provides some classes that you can use.
Okay.
And you sort of set up your application to use that its classes by default, but then it gives you hooks to be able to do your own custom thing if you want to. So for example, if you have one route that displays some HTML, and then you click a link and it goes to some other page that you want to do some more native stuff, you should be able to hook into that and present whatever native functionality you want to add on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to open up TurboLinks iOS here. And running the demo. The repository includes a demo application to show off the features of the framework. The demo bundles a simple HTTP server, serves TurboLinks 5 web app on localhost port 9292. To run the demo, clone the repository to your computer, change it to this directory, then start the demo server by running TurboLinks demo server from the command line. little small. Bump up my font size.
Oh, it was okay for me. That's probably better.
I'm sure somebody will
yeah,
appreciate it.
a lot of that is A, I have my reading glasses on. B, I have a 27-inch, Apple display. So
Right.
both of those things help.
Oh, interesting. The demo server installs its dependencies by default when you start it up. It's kind of nice. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention was that I am working on starting a screencast series. So if you go to RubyMotion.tv, you
okay.
see a sign-up form here. It's just basically a placeholder to collect email addresses so that I can let people know when some of my screencasts are ready. So I feel like there's a void right now where there aren't really any new video tutorials coming out. So I thought I'd try to fill that void.
No, there was a couple of series in the past that people had put some things up. There was a few free ones, and then there were some paid ones, and I actually had subscribed to both of the ones that were paid for a while. And
yeah, there was Motion in Motion.
Yeah,
that was a good one. I was subscribed to that too.
Yeah, before that there was a gent from South Africa, Motion Casts.
Yep.
And I think he put together about 21 different episodes. They were fairly short, about 10 or 12 minutes each.
Yep.
So I actually met him at the first Inspect conference in Brussels. So, but he, I think his work took him in a different direction, and so he stopped working with RubyMotion, and so they sort of died away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was too bad that Jack didn't continue the Motion in Motion series, but kind of looks like he's gone off in different directions as well.
Yeah, it's tough when you are involved in other stuff and you just don't have time for it anymore.
It's a lot of work, I would imagine. So, I appreciate it, Andrew, and whatever I could do to support, I will try to help with that.
Cool, thanks.
This was written by the guys at Basecamp?
Yep. There we go. That's what I was trying to. One of the things I love about RubyMotion is not having to use a complicated IDE.
Yeah.
Being able to choose your own editor.
I actually use RubyMine most of the time, but I use it because the assist features are good.
Yeah, it seems like it's got some nice like debug integration.
Now, I normally, one of the things that I set up for myself is I created some Apple scripts that just create a whole bunch of iTerms whenever I start up a project. It starts up my RubyMine session, but it also opens 2 or 3 iTerms, and one of them runs guard, so that I'm running my tests, continually as I save any files, and then it redoes, I have access to the REPL. I mainly use the command line. I I'm an old command line guy anyways, so it wasn't really a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And an old Unix guy, right? So which is one of the reasons why I gravitated sort of back to Macs from being away on them for a while. And I find doing most of the stuff on the command line, even though I'm using RubyMine, I don't use the integrated features all that much, but the code assist is very helpful. And sometimes for picking out your errors, it helps as well.
Yeah.
Colin Kalinta, what is Colin's last name?
Colin.
From the RubyMotion, he did Motion Kit. He had a back and forth.
Colin T.A. Gray.
Yeah, I believe so. He had a back and forth with Jack from Motion and Motion. They were talking about the advantages of an IDE versus having primarily text things. And one of the things that Colin pointed out is that when you do things like in text, actual text, like whether you're building your displays or whatnot, you can actually post that in a discussion, in a text-based discussion, like Stack Overflow or something. Whereas when your instructions consist of clicking on things on an interface, mm-hmm. It can sometimes be very hard to explain exactly what's missing to people.
Yeah. Click on the icon that looks like this.
Yeah.
In the top right corner.
If you're not using it all the time, it's real easy to get lost. Every new release of Xcode, you go in and you go, okay, where was that thing that I had to use again to set this? And
mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with plain text editors sometimes. It seemed to hang up somewhere. Was that correct?
I think it just needed a boot.
Okay.
There it is.
There. Okay.
I got the demo up and running. Hello from TurboLinks. This demo app will help you get acquainted with the framework. Open a new view controller by following a regular link. When you tap the link to this page, TurboLinks calls the session delegate session did propose visit to URL with action method. Demo app's application controller implements this method and decides how to handle the URL. So we could do the same thing. Or here's a link to another page that does a replace instead of an advance. Isn't this fun? Look at that. When I hit back, it went back. So that did replace that.
Yeah.
Current view controller. So it's got some caching included. Trigger an HTTP 404. Page not found. So presents some sort of a native interface since it returned 404. Let's load a native view controller to see how to intercept the URL and handle it natively. So here's a native table view. So let's look at some of these examples of how it works. I was I was expecting app delegate to do something here, but so now it's getting to application controller. Anyway, the quick start guide says that start with a UI navigation controller based project. Start with updating your app delegate to, in your application did finish launching with options method, set your root view controller to a navigation view controller, a UI navigation controller. Configure your project for turbolinks. So this is adding this configuration option to your info plist, the allow
transport security.
roads. Yep. Set up a turbolink session and perform an initial visit. So once we update our app delegate, did finish launching with options, it calls this start application method here, which calls visit, loads this localhost 9292 visitable view controller. This comes from TurboLinks. So it sets up this view controller.
And then pushes it onto the navigation controller.
Onto the navigation stack, and then calls session.visit. Where did session come from? Session's up here. So it's initialized when this is.
Okay, and the visit takes the view controller for the visit.
Yep. So I think we can start with this sort of thing here. So I want to do a motion, create motion TurboLinks demo.
To start off, are you just going to stick the code as like modules within this sample application and then refactor it out into something else later?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah. Just clarifying. Thanks, Andrew.
So by default, by generating a RubyMotion application here by calling motion create motion TurboLinks demo, we've created our app with the name of motion TurboLinks demo, and it generates it with some default stuff here. Now, if we were using some framework like Red Potion or Flow, then this would look a little bit different.
Yeah,
it would be simplified, but this is kind of a true to iOS standard setup here. We initialize our UI navigation controller with a root view controller. So in this case, we are going to our window root view controller is our navigation controller. And when we start application, we can just start
application. Is that TurboLinks? Because that's not iOS, is it?
Start application is this custom method.
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah, that's where they add the visit. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I wonder if visit is something special here. Maybe we should implement that on an app delegate. So I'm going to convert this Swift code to RubyMotion compatible code here. So these
Change the funcs to defs.
These funkies are going to be def. And we don't need to accept any params. It's going to be def. And now, as far as I know, there is no Swift to RubyMotion like auto converter.
No. Well, part of the problem is that they've changed the iOS method names in Swift. So you could go back and forth between Objective-C and RubyMotion because the method names were essentially the same. But you have to be careful with Swift because the Swift method names are now slightly different than the comparable Objective-C method names. That's caught me when I've looked at some examples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's subtle differences and some major differences.
Yeah, well, yeah. So yeah, they've dramatically changed. You know, some of the methods are very different from what they were when they were in Objective-C. They've started to do that.
So I'm starting to extract this into a variable here. So this NSURL parentheses string and with the bang at the end here. This bang I think means like this is not optional. It has to.
Yeah, the bang says die if it doesn't. So I think that the initializer for NSURL like that with the string could actually return an optional. So the bang forces it it unwraps it. If my Swift is correct.
You're probably right. I'm still a beginner to Swift, so
me as well. So I'm trying to be very careful about that.
So I think that I've converted this correctly.
I think that's so. Yeah. That looks correct to me.
So this is a kind of a direct RubyMotion to Objective-C conversion here, what we call .alloc.init with string. But there are other ways of initializing an NSURL object that's a lot simpler than doing it like this. But I'm going to stick with this right now because it's the most direct, and then we can improve it later. So visit, we don't have to declare our type because this is RubyMotion. So we just accept the URL. So when we call visit, we pass a URL in here. We don't have to say let. We just say our visitable view controller is a visitable view controller. Now we're going to define this ourselves. This isn't a Apple default type of thing. So.
No, it's not a UI kit or anything class. It's not one of Apple's frameworks. So.
So I'm going to say that we can define this as just by calling new.
Now, it likely subclasses a UI view controller, though, doesn't it?
It's possible.
Okay.
So we'll get that.
Yeah. No, the reason why I say that is I have found that I often use I'm consistent with when I subclass the UI kit or the Cocoa libraries, that I stick with the alloc.init sort of ideas. That's just something that I tend to do with them. Although I'm not with, I guess, when you're creating your own classes, it kind of goes back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've done that too.
I think it depends on if the default initializer that you need to call, like if you need to call super,
Mm-hmm.
You need to have the same initializer, right? So if the default initializer for a view controller is an init with something or other, and that's the one that you have to call, that you have to have that method there.
Yeah. So now I'm calling bundle exec rake. I always call bundle exec before doing anything.
Yeah, I had a post on the boards about that.
It's just, and there are ways to set up my environment so that it always calls bundle exec for me, but I have this alias set up so I can just say BE. That's easy enough.
That's the easiest way. I after I saw you do that, I think on the last meetup, I added that alias to my list. I don't have a lot of aliases. For a long time Unix guy, I suppose that's a little bit weird, but you get into using just a few, and if you don't always port them with you to every system, oh boy, doesn't like something.
Yeah, I expected this.
Oh yeah, because we didn't define the class. Yeah, doesn't know how to build it.
Yeah. So the first one we're going to run into is visitable view controller.
Yeah.
Uninitialized constant app delegate visible view controller. And once we get past that, it's going to complain about session because I haven't defined session yet.
No.
So one way would be to initialize a session object here and finish launching. It's called session. That's it.
Yeah, it was just a session, so it's another class as well. That's.
I think I would prefer this to be namespaced under its own module. Get TurboLink session.
Yeah.
And visitable view controller, probably the same thing. And session, let's see, I think I can do add a reader.
Yep.
Session.
Yep.
So since we've initialized it here, add a reader session will give us a getter so that we can use it down here.
Use it there, yeah.
So I guess start by creating a lib directory. Oops. I'll do it with an app. And really, this could be named whatever I want. And for that matter, maybe I'll just name it TurboLinks. The beginnings of the TurboLinks RubyMotion gem. We'll have one for a session, and we'll have a visitable view controller. And each of those are going to have a module turbo links class controller. All right, so if we start this up again, the next thing we're going to run into is that.
Yeah, there's no initializer that takes a parameter.
Well, first, TurboLink session will be fine. It's just going to initialize the class.
Yeah.
The next thing is visible view controller. We're going to be passing it some arguments here. And since this is, we're defining our own, this is more of like a Ruby initializer. So we can call initialize. I think that'll work.
Yes, in is it Ruby 2.2 that added those, that you can do them?
I'm not sure exactly which version of Ruby 2, but
yeah, it was
Ruby
something
2
Ruby 2 added so that you could actually name your parameters.
Yeah, like the keyword arguments, I think is
yeah.
what they're called. But I think that RubyMotion had them before Ruby.
Yes, it did, because it needed them, because you needed to have them to interface back and forth with Objective-C.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how closely RubyMotion's implementation of keyword arguments matches MRI Ruby's keyword arguments implementation. But we could try that and see what happens. This would be
I think it'll work.
Requiring it.
If not, it'll bomb, and we'll have something to fix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. And then session is going to have a visit method that we're going to need to implement. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to put
the visit takes a parameter.
Visited. Well. Oh no, it takes a view controller.
Yeah, a view controller. Sorry. Let's say .inspect, just so we can see something. So if I run this again. Uh-oh, failed to compile. Invalid use of named arguments in method definition. Okay, there's our answer. So that's not the right syntax. It might be because initialize is pure Ruby and it doesn't allow it. So if we do that, like if you want the URL, like if you want it to be the same, you have a colon at the end of URL.
Right. So I think that the Ruby syntax for this is if you don't pass anything as the next part of this, it makes this required. Otherwise, you're setting the default value of this argument.
No, normal Ruby is you would do an equals.
I mean,
I think I see what. Yeah. Okay.
So instead, this is going to be options URL, and I think that's fine for now.
I thought the conversion of the options into an array was a Rails trick, but okay.
Okay, now our error is name error, uncut exception. App delegate undefined local variable method navigation controller. So I referenced navigation controller, but referenced it like this.
Yeah.
Instead of
put an @ sign in front of it. Of course, likely to be absolutely correct. We probably should have made an adder reader for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then not put the @ sign lower down. Oh, it died again.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Yeah. No. Did I reference it again?
The line 17. Sorry.
Line 12.
Oh, 12. See, even with my reading glasses. Yeah, then it'll be fine. Yeah.
Invalid argument exception. Visible view controller. Use layout to train it. Recognize selector sent instance. So we push view controller animated. When that gets called, expecting navigation controller, I mean a view controller, but we just created an object that doesn't adhere to what it expects. So now is when we need a real view controller.
We didn't subclass a UI view controller or implement the necessary methods.
So TurboLinks visitable view controller. Subclasses.
So it implements the UI view controller and the visitable. Is that a protocol or is that another class? That's another class. It's a protocol. Okay.
So we can just subclass visitable view controller. By extending UI view controller.
Yeah.
Now, since we're subclassing UI view controller, this might make it a little tricky because we're not using a default.
Yeah, this is where I think that we need to find what the standard initializer for UI view controller is, and that's the one that we have to subclass or override.
Mm-hmm. So since, actually, now would be a good time to look up the UI view controller documentation.
I keep Dash on my system. I don't know if you heard about the thing about Dash being removed from the App Store and everything, but I've used Dash, and I actually find Dash very handy to have specifically for looking up all the Apple reference stuff.
Yeah, that reminds me. I used to use Dash all the time, and for some reason I don't use it anymore. I think because I got a new computer and then I didn't set it up with that. I'm going to switch the language to Objective-C so that we can see the Objective-C versions of these. Subclassing notes. Every app contains at least one custom subclass of UI view controller. More often, apps contain many. So here's the standard view transition, view state transition.
And the methods that get called on each transition.
Yeah. View will appear. It's appearing. View did appear. View will disappear. View did disappear. View will appear. View will disappear. I was expecting to see view did load in that, but I guess that's not the same thing. Handling view rotations, implementing a container view controller. I was looking to see if there was a default initializer that it expected. I don't see anything like that. There's a init with nib name bundle, but I don't think that that's a required
I
thing.
don't think that that's the default. Now, it might be the default, and I do know that I have seen people call init with nib name and pass in nil.
Yeah.
So
which I'm going to assume that I can call basically new is the equivalent of calling alloc init. Except we've got our default initializer here in RubyMotion, not init. So I'm going to say new, and I'm going to assume this works. I might need to call super, but I'm going to try it just like this. See what happens. We're extending a UI view controller. So we get all the default functionality of the UI view controller.
I didn't see.
Oh my goodness, it worked. I didn't. And look at that, session visit with arg TurboLinks visitable view controller. So I really didn't have to do anything.
Okay.
I just had to say that I'm subclassing it. All right. So I could probably skip this setting up the root view controller up here if we want to make our visitable view controller the root view controller. Because it pushed it on instead of So I wonder if you can start this up without a view controller. I think that's what the example shows. It's just initializing a UI navigation controller without specifying a root view controller, and then pushing a view controller on it makes it the root view controller because it's going from 0 to 1. So I'm going to try that. I'm just going to allocate it navigation controller. And then the next thing we're going to do is implement session visit, figure out what session visit does.
Mm-hmm.
So Xcode session delegate. Oh, that's protocol at the top. Class is implemented down there. All right, so we loaded our, at least I'm assuming we loaded our visitable view controller.
Likely, we can see in the REPL if it dumped out the text string. Yep. So I mean, it did the load, right?
Yep.
Or it looks like it did. We pushed it on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that we set our root view controller to be this by calling push view controller.
Yeah, yeah.
Trying to figure out how I can get a reference to root view controller, and I'm not exactly sure, but let's see if I can command click on view, which switched me to a view. Oops. And click
Okay.
in this view.
Your UI view. I saw some guys working with that once, and it was like, oh, that looks cool, and I never really get it to work for me. So I just sort of dug my way through with the REPL itself, and I can't remember what it is for the iOS for the delegate.
Yeah,
I thought it was app delegate to get the delegate.
No.
No.
I'll have to figure that out later.
Yeah.
One trick that I do is
it took me a while
kind of
to
global
figure it out, because when you're dealing with a Cocoa app, it's different. And I had to find, I can't remember even where I found it, but eventually I found out that it's to reference the main app delegate object on a Mac OS application that you're running in the REPL. It's a different name.
I noticed we had a comment in our YouTube page.
Oh.
In the live chat from Casper Christensen. So I was checking on that. Let's see, what was I?
Of course, it doesn't show up in the Hangout when you're running the Hangout, so.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying. I'd like to see what's going on instead of having to have both.
When I logged into the Hangout, I shut down the YouTube session.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially for me, I end up hearing an echo because it's a little bit delayed.
Yeah.
All right, so our session object calls visit with a visitable, which I guess is a visitable view controller is something that's visitable, I guess. It calls visit visitable.
Yeah, the visitable view controller implements the visitable protocol.
With action advance. So let's try to implement a little more of this. We'll rename that visitable. Action. So this dot advance is a
enumerable
Swift enum.
Yeah.
Which we are not going to use, but we can use a symbol. That would be a Ruby-ish way of handling that.
Okay.
First argument is our visitable. Actually, implemented as a private function, so sure, we'll keep that private. Def visitable. Visitable will be the first argument. Action will be the second argument. Actually, got options. Probably figure out how to define keyword arguments in my method. RubyMotion.
It may not allow it on the initialize, but I'm pretty sure it does on the defs.
When was this written? Several years ago. Based on this, which might be old, it seems like it's not possible at the moment.
Yeah, so I think that what you have in the code is okay, but the colon and the name after the colon is, so you'd specify the keyword and then the colon actually translates it into internally within your method. It's almost like using the Swift method of an external name and an internal name. If you look at Swift, you can have an external name for the method, an internal name for the parameter, sorry, the parameter of the method, an internal name for the parameter of the method, then they have the type of the parameter of the method. That's the way that they do it in Swift. And sometimes if they don't care about the external name in Swift, they put an underscore, which means just forget about this. Don't give it an external name, which you'll see that in some of the methods for Swift.
Let's translate this first line here. Guard visitable URL is not equal to nil, else curly braces return.
I think the best Ruby translation for that would be unless visitable.visitable URL returned.
Yep, I think you're right. It's like setting a guard for this method to not execute anything else unless.
Yeah, yeah. So essentially, that's an escape if the optional visitable URL, and I don't know that we have a visitable URL in visitable.
Yeah, not yet. So that's going to be.
Yeah, better syntax. Sorry, thank you.
Interesting. This will probably raise a no method error since we haven't implemented visitable URL. So I guess we should define that.
Now you could go with just URL. Just do an adder accessor on URL.
Yep.
If you want to maintain the same name as what's in the original library, which does have some value if you ever need to go back to, you know, you're looking to see the changes from your current code.
Mm-hmm. I think.
Accessor. Well, okay. No. Sorry. Yeah. No, reader is fine.
Yeah,
reader
you're right. I mean, I could make it an accessor.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I'll need to update that or not, but let's start with that. This is assuming that visitable actually is a visitable, which in Ruby we don't have that protection, but that's okay. We like living on the edge. Visitable.
We're more open about it. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
So it looks like we're setting our session as the delegate on visitable here. So now we need a adder accessor.
Yeah.
Visitable delegate. Now, this let visit : visit, I think means define a variable called visit and initialize a new or of type visit.
Yes, of type. It's just declaring the type. The let. I guess it's an optional.
I think it's mutable is what that means.
No, var is mutable.
Oh, that's right.
So I think that what it means is you get to assign it once, and once it's been assigned, that's it. But you haven't actually initialized it right now.
Mm-hmm. So since we've got these down here, I'm going to remove that because we don't need to find any variables with types. If initialized. Where does initialize come from? That must be
a local method on session. Or a variable. Can we?
Session private var initialized equals false.
Yes.
So interesting. Not sure if we're going to need this, but we'll see. So
now the question is where does it get set?
I'm guessing it gets set at some point after something loads, maybe.
Perhaps, yeah.
I don't know. That's an assumption I'm making. I could be totally wrong about. So now we have if initialized JavaScript visit. So, and a cold boot visit. Okay, that's the difference. We haven't initialized our app yet, so this is going to be a cold boot. We're cold booting our application for the first time. We're opening up our first view controller. So something different is going to happen, I guess. So let's define a TurboLinks cold boot visit.
So I would think from the Swift side that JavaScript visit and cold boot visit are in a class hierarchy under visit.
You're probably right. Let's see. Let's see, visit delegate, visit state, visit object. And cold boot visit is a subclass is visit. So it is a subclass which overrides some behavior. And then the JavaScript visit also is a subclass. Subclass is visit. It does some different things. So
personally, I always think it's better to keep them in separate files.
Yep. Now here's something that we might run into. Cold boot visit alphabetically comes before visit, the V. So our auto loading might have trouble finding this.
Yes, that's possible.
Run into this problem before. Might not be an issue, but we'll see. TurboLinks visit.rb. It's going to be a JavaScript visit. JavaScript is camel cased here, but I didn't name it that. I guess it does look right. JavaScript.
I don't know which one is correct.
I feel weird putting an underscore between Java and script. JavaScript.
If you camel case it internally, well, sorry, from a Rails aspect, if it's camel case like that internally, it has to be you have the underscores in the file name.
Right.
I don't know that RubyMotion with the compile makes that very that fine line of a distinction. I think that's the autoloader in Rails.
Yeah, with RubyMotion, it doesn't matter what these files are named because there is no auto loading. Everything in the app is compiled together.
Yeah.
So
that's going to be a .new.
Yeah. So we'll do that .new and .new. And should be able to find these underneath the TurboLinks module.
Yeah.
New visitable, visitable, action, WebView, underscore WebView. Interesting. So this is this underscore argument you were talking about.
No, they're just using that to indicate something that's internal.
Right.
So it's not quite the same as the underscoring that I was talking about in Swift before.
Well, private var underscore WebView takes a WebView. Public var WebView. WebKit WebView return underscore web view.
I think the reason
why
they might have done that is because the internal variable is called a web view. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so this underscore web view. I don't know if I really want to underscore, but
it's a valid identifier in Ruby. It'll work.
Sure.
It may look incredibly ugly, but you know. There's quite a bit of stuff here to implement.
Yeah, I'm going to start with just subclassing WebKit WebView.
Yeah.
So module turbo links class WebView subclasses WebKit WebView. Now I think that we're going to need to import or add the WebKit
the
framework.
Yeah.
But we'll see. So that gives us a web view. And we've got an add a reader, so now we can reference it down here.
Do we have the action? In the visitable, originally, I think it, where did we get the action from?
Oh, action is passed in, but we're not extracting it from the options here.
Yeah.
And this is a restoration identifier on
a JavaScript
visit. This is another method.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say do. Because right now we're only concerned with a cold boot.
Mm-hmm.
Now current visit, something else.
So current visit equals visit.
Oh, if we have a current visit, then call cancel, and then replace our current visit with visit. So
yeah. Current visit dot cancel if current visit.
and then visit delegate is self. We'll need to define that on visit. Visit start. See how far that gets us.
I have a tendency to start trying to implement the entire library that's there as opposed to stubbing it out like that.
Yeah, if I was trying to do it all, I probably would also.
It's a good exercise to. Oh, did we include the framework?
No, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So in a rake file, we're going to need to.
It's a good exercise to think in terms of, okay, let me just put in this much and see what happens with it.
Mm-hmm.
App.frameworks?
I think it's frameworks, and we might need to push that onto
and
array.
It's the less than, I think, isn't it?
Let's see, RubyMotion. WK WebView. Now there's an example in here. Oh, where is it? Project management, I think that's what I was supposed to do. I guess it's just frameworks. Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yep, plus equals.
Could not find bridge support file for framework. WK WebView.
What framework is it? It might not be named WK WebView.
Oh, right. It's.
We may have to go on the Apple. WebKit. There we go.
WebKit, the name of the framework?
Yeah, because it'll be the same as the import.
I believe you. I'm just trying to see if it was mentioned anywhere. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was on there somewhere, but I would think that it's the same as the import statement for
Framework WebKit.
Yeah, okay.
Which provides all these different
Yeah.
classes.
And if not, then we'll do some more digging.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, launched without error. Called start on visit. What do you know? Worked all the way through.
Well, almost. Called start on visit. Oh no, okay. Yeah, I would call that. Yeah. That's the only thing that would come out. I was thinking it would be something different depending on whichever one it was or whatnot, but that's as far as we took it.
Right. So now we can see what our default visit behavior is.
Now, is the visit, now it's a class. Okay, visit is a class.
Or start is the method.
Yeah.
Start. If state is initialized, delegate visit will start. Set the state to started and start visit.
This looks really like a state machine, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's got that enum. I think visit state is an enum.
Visit state. I mean this here?
Yes. Yeah. State is a visit state type.
Oh, that's right.
Probably want to remove that opening curly brace on the end of line 8.
Yep.
Now, do we need the protection? They didn't do a guard on the delegate, did they? Okay. They unwrap the delegate, and then they just called visit will start on it, even if delegate might not have been set.
Yeah, that's true. That's what that question mark was. It's like.
Yeah, well, they just did an unwrap on it, which was they actually should have done like a guard or a let to unwrap it. I think it's actually a bug in their code.
Maybe.
Because delegate might not be set, right?
Yeah. In that case, it seems like it didn't work the way it was supposed to. Because in session, we initialize a visit and we set the delegate here before calling.
And then they call it. See, so they have code in there. It's just that the visit class itself doesn't protect itself from, because you could call start at any point in time. There's in their code.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I could do a pull request for them.
pull request will be this new gem.
Well, yeah. Yeah. We'll just let them know, oh, by the way, we fixed your code. Yeah. No. That's if my reading of Swift is correct. I from what I've seen, it's you want to, because it's optional, it may or may not have a value that you need to do a guard on it first.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing I just noticed was we're calling new and we're passing these arguments.
Yeah.
But we are not doing anything with them.
No, not as yet.
Which is a little surprising that something didn't break. We'll call def initialize.
So here the thing is do you want to do, yeah, options? Okay.
And the options symbol. Action. Actions. Web view. State is initialized. Visitable URL.
Okay, so we probably want to change all of these from self to ats.
Yep, potentially. I'm not sure if we want to expose those or not. So for now, I think let's change them to ats. And full
Location, action, web view, and state. I love that when the assist puts in code that you don't want. You go, what?
Yeah.
Now, visitable URL may not be there.
Should be.
Should be.
We've
but
got visitable URL here. So assuming
yeah,
it's
we're just
visitable,
pulling it out. Yeah, so yeah, we should be good.
then we call state initialized, call visit will start with self. So then I was over here implementing visit will start. And start visit, which is also today. So check and see what this visit will start actually does. On the session.
Was it a session or was it a?
I think so. Yes. Wait a second.
It's the delegate.
Delegate is coming from
Of the visit. The delegate of the visit is set to the visitable UI controller.
In this case, the visit delegate is set to self, which is session.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry.
So I think when it gets to here, delegate is referring to the session.
The session, yeah. Okay. That would mean the visit will start must be on the session.
Yep. So here we're in session. Can I increase? I don't know how to increase the font size of Xcode here, but
That's okay. That's okay. Well, for me right now, it's okay. I mean, people may write in and say, "Boy, it was tiny."
yeah, I'll have to narrate. Visit will start. So I'm looking for visit will start. There it is.
Ah, okay, okay. They put it in an extension. Okay.
Interesting. So I'm not familiar with extension.
So extension is when you have protocols to implement, they'll actually extend the class, which helps to kind of segregate the code. There's probably some other reasons behind it, but what this says is that session is actually a visit delegate, and so they create the extension, which is like reopens the class and adds these methods to it. But then it kind of groups them all together so that you know, all those delegate methods that you need to implement on any of these classes, they're all in a chunk and you know where they are. And sometimes they'll put them in separate files and stuff like that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, see that visit delegate up there. So the implementation of this visit will start. Some interesting stuff. Visit.visitable.show visitable screenshot.
Okay. And then activate visitable, passing in the visit.visitable, which must be another method within the protocol.
Activate visitable. Calls with the visit.visitable, which we passed in when we called visit visitable. Setting the visitable here. All right.
Activate visitable.
Yeah, figure out what that does in case we need it.
Is it in this protocol or?
Here it is. Visitable activation. Private function activate visitable. If visitable is not equal to the activated visitable, then deactivate the current activated visitable and call visitable activate visitable web view. Okay. Have some more Ruby indentation levels here. Wait a second. If our visitable is not, so if it is the same, then it doesn't do anything. So I'm going to change this up a little bit and say return if visitable is equal to the activated visitable.
Okay.
We don't have to have this extra branch in here.
No. Now the if let. Okay, so that sets activated visitable to whatever self.activated visitable is.
It sets this local variable to
the. And if it's null, right, it'll skip over it.
Right.
So if self.activated visitable returns nil or null, then it won't execute that statement.
I'm going to change this to just say if activated visitable. We don't need to assign that to a local variable. We can just access it like this. and called deactivate visitable, passing the activated visitable.
Do we have an activated visitable as a
We don't yet.
Okay.
We'll need to define that. Let's put it up here.
Okay.
And then it calls. Oh, we got to change this here. Just remove that type. And visitable.activate visitable web view. Passing the web view, which is actually not the same as this underscore web view, if I remember.
Yeah,
So they've got a web view and an underscore web view.
Yeah.
Which ends up returning the underscore web view. So I'm not exactly sure why they do that.
They're doing a type translation. That's why. Let's go back to it. You see, the underscore web view is actually a web view, and it's one of theirs.
This one, yeah. This is the TurboLinks web view, which is a subclass of, or subclasses WebKit web view.
Yeah, so that's I think because of the typing issues, that might be why they're wrapping it like that. So they're actually wrapping the underscore web view to turn it into a WK web view when they return it, even though it's one of their subclassed objects.
Mm-hmm. Well, for our purposes, I don't think
the wonders of type safety.
Yeah.
Don't we wish we had it in Ruby?
No, thank you. So I'm going to just update all these because I don't think we need to differentiate between them. I think we can use the quacks like a duck kind of approach to this.
Yes. We do need that activate visitable web view, I think, on the visitable.
Mm-hmm. And then here we're going to set activated visitable to visitable.
If you're ever interested in seeing what type safety does to some things, you should look at Ben Shearman's NS screencasts and see him implement a JSON parser in Swift. It's like, wow.
I believe it.
Yeah. We don't have a visitable view.
So this visitable is feeling like a mix-in, but I'm not sure what else it's used for yet, so I'm going to try to avoid that.
Yeah.
Visitable. I mean, where does visitable view come from?
It's
here
in the definition of the protocol, sort of.
So do we have a visitable view here? Public lazy var.
The lazy means execute that when it gets used.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to implement something like that. Say def visitable view.
So you could visitable view. You could have an @visitable view with the standard Ruby. You know, the bar. Yeah.
Or equals.
Yeah.
Visitable view dot new frame cgrect 0. I think we can keep it like that.
You may have to put this inside of a block.
Right.
At least the first two statements.
Because we have to call translate auto resizing mask into constraint.
Yeah.
False. So to do that, I'm going to call begin and end. So we can call view equals visitable view new view dot translates that into false, and then return the view. So when visitable view gets called, visitable view will be set. So now in our activate visitable web view, call visitable view dot activate web view, passing the web view for visitable self. Okay. Now where were we? Where did we call this? Why were we implementing this? Session. Okay, we were calling activate visitable. And where were we calling this?
I think we implemented the next chunk of pieces.
Visit will start. That's when we call activate visitable.
Yeah. Now we have the line before that, which is visit.visitable.show.
Show visitable screenshot. I'm going to say that's a to-do later.
Okay.
I'm guessing that that's some kind of a caching thing that we can implement to make it look faster by displaying a screenshot while it's actually loading the web page.
Okay. Okay.
Let's just see what happens when we run it. I'm not sure where we are anymore.
No, I was going to suggest let's give it a go and see if it compiles and.
Oops. Session.
It doesn't like return if.
Really? Oh no, what it doesn't like is this extra curly brace up here.
Ah. Sorry, I missed that.
Me too, apparently.
Well, when you're doing pair programming, the guy that's not typing is supposed to be watching out for those things.
Yeah. All right.
Oh.
What do we get now? Visitable view. We haven't implemented visitable view yet. Okay, visitable view, new file. Module, turbo links, class, visitable view. I'm curious what this is actually. It's a UI view. And I think we can avoid anything. Actually, we're going to be calling something.
Sorry?
We're going to be calling something on it here soon. We're going to be calling activate web view, which is defined here.
See, there's an instance in that method signature of the dual naming. So you see for visitable and visitable colon. For visitable is the external name, visitable is the internal name.
Oh, right, here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you can have a more like fluent interface.
Yeah, so you have the name that the variable uses on the outside, and then you got the name that the variable uses on the inside of the method.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the method signature is meant to be readable. So you say activate web view for visitable, but calling it for visitable internally just kind of mucks it all up. And those two names are kind of what happens when you use name parameters in RubyMotion. When you use name parameters in RubyMotion, you actually have an external name and then the internal name for it. I was going to suggest that what you could do is instead of options, you could do the web view and just remove colon WK web view colon, and then do the for visitable colon visitable.
Yep, it's true.
And then that should actually work.
So I do web view options, and then visitable would be options.
Actually, instead of web view comma options, what you could do is for visitable colon visitable, and then the code actually would stay the same.
Really?
And then you just, instead of options visitable on line 6, it would just be visitable.
That could be the interface that I've been trying to find. Yeah, the method signature.
Yeah. Subview, add fill constraints, update content insets. All those are coming from UI view, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Might be a few others that are not, but I think maybe this show hide. Let's see.
Yeah, show hide web view was defined a little bit lower down.
I guess all these things are defined.
Oh, are they? Oh.
And it's layout constraints with visual format. This visual format is interesting.
I think that that's all fine, actually. Like that code is like,
Yeah.
oh no, we should check. We should validate because that's Swift code. Just make sure that I think it's the same for the Objective-C, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. Well, if it blows up, then we'll know.
Okay.
Yes. Update content insets. Update web view, scroll view insets. Content inset, double question mark. Hidden scroll view content inset.
That's a Swift. I think it means if the first thing is nil, then take the second thing, but I'm not positive.
Well, I'm going to set that as a to-do.
Okay.
I think if we don't update our content insets, it'll be okay. Install refresh controller. We might just be able to skip some of these for now.
Yeah, there's a couple of other things that that they're doing that probably need a little bit of yeah, you need an end after that. Yeah. They've implemented kind of the Swift version of key value observing sort of idea with the did sets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Show or hide web view. Here's a screenshot stuff again.
Sorry?
I just noticed that there's some reference to screenshot. Again.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna make that a to-do also. If we are showing a screenshot, then we're gonna hide our web view until it's fully loaded.
Yeah.
That's what I read that to mean. So I've got a bunch of no ops here. Actually, now that I'm looking at this, I'm outside of my class. I need to move this.
Yeah.
There we go. Self.webview. We'll set some adder readers. View and visit people. Okay, so that activates our web view, but I guess here we're adding the web view to the subview as a subview. So I think that's the main thing that we needed here.
And it puts the constraints on it, although I don't think we activated the constraints, so I'm not sure what that'll do.
Yeah. Oh, what do we do here? Syntax error, unexpected colon.
In 18. Okay.
Yeah, this is the setting these constraints. Obviously, this
Okay, okay. So change it to the equal rocket. In Ruby 2.3, I think you can actually do a string with the colon after it.
That'll be nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Boom. Wrong number of arguments in visitable view controller.
Let's get a trace here. Visitable view controller line 19, and then visitable view controller line 12. Visible view controller 19.
Dot
And then
activate.
12. So I think the frame here is the problem. We need to call alloc init with frame.
Ah, okay. Yeah, once again, I think that's a Swift to Objective-C thing.
Mm-hmm. How close are we? Let's see. Cold start on visit. Add fill constraints for subview. Can't convert array into integer. I'm just going to comment out that line. That's yeah. I think it's setting these constraints. It's complaining about. Right? Was it line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are fixable. They just have to be looked up. You know, just a little bit of research.
Yeah. There is a way. I'm just not sure what it is.
Woohoo!
Hey, all right. Now, I got it to do. Maybe I'm hitting a...
Well, there's a whole bunch of places where you put to-dos.
Yeah. Start visit. I think that's
yeah.
the one.
So it called it, and it all ran.
So we went through the whole visit will start
Yes.
stack. Now we actually need to start the visit. Let's see how hard that is to implement. On the view controller, no. On the visit.
That's not bad, actually, for the amount of work that we've done so far in a couple of hours. Because if you look at it, there's a fair amount of code in this code base.
Did I spell that right? Let's see.
IMPLE, I think.
Trying to figure out how to toggle my spell check. I thought it was function F6, but maybe I'm thinking of Sublime.
Atom is one editor I don't use.
Well, implemented. Because in the base class, it's just not implemented. So if the start visit we're actually using is a cold boot visit, and this is where it's overridden. Cold boot visit here, def start visit. Web view, do we have web view? Yes, we do.
Yes, and we have, I don't know that we have a page.
Page load delegate.
Yeah, I don't think we have either of those on the web view.
Yeah, I think we're going to need those. Adder, accessor, delegate. What was the other one?
And navigation delegate?
Delegate. All right, let's see. And we're going to start a new request here. Net with URL, probably. Location comes
I can't remember
from
off the top of my head, sorry.
here. That's all right. I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be. Translating from Swift to Objective-C.
Yeah, yeah.
Navigation is going to be webview.load request.
And I don't think the web view has a load request on it either.
You are probably right about that.
Yeah.
Nope. That is, in fact.
Is it on the WK?
I think so.
Ah, okay, okay.
And then it calls start request.
Which is another local that we'll have to.
See how far that gets us. Meanwhile, start request on cold boot visit. Cancel visit, complete visit, fail visit.
There it is.
Private.
I think the start visit was private as well, which was.
Well, let's click into it and see. Nope, takes me to WebKit, web view, load request.
Yep.
All right, what was the error that we got here?
You had it twice.
Visit did start.
Visit did start for. In the delegate, yes.
In the delegate.
And you have start request twice, which I suppose is not really an error, but you probably want to remove one of them.
You're right. Yeah, what's delegate again here? Delegate
Yeah, we set the delegate.
is set when we set up that visit.
It was set immediately before that was called.
And that is the session.
And what we needed was a visit did start. Jeez. Oh, we got all the way through.
Yeah. To to do start request.
Yep.
I skipped over the delegate visit did start because I think that's another one of those setting some state that we may need later but don't need right now.
If not request started.
So unless request
started, yeah. So we need request started. That's the same method that's up.
This one is visit did start, and the other one is visit
requested start. Okay, okay. Sorry. Thank you.
I don't know if I. Why are there so many of these little?
Yeah, it's very circular too.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that it keeps calling these sub things that are then calling things back on the thing that started it all.
Yeah. Visit did start.
And then, yeah, visit did start.
Visit will start. Visit did start. Unless visit has cached snapshot. Visit dot visitable dot show visitable activity indicator. Let's get this.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing?
Visit request did start.
That's right. Visit request.
The visit did start. It looks like it's just, you know, putting an indicator on the screen. I'm wondering if the visit request did start is actually doing something. There it is. Or just redirecting to call something else once again.
This is all allowing you to set up your delegates and whatnot.
Session did start request.
Now the delegate in this case, wait a second, we don't even have a delegate yet.
Session doesn't have a delegate, no. Or at least not yet.
Seems strange.
No, sorry. No, that calls the...
Possible that there are some other things that we need to implement.
Yeah.
Show or hide web view. Okay, let's see. I'll start on visit. Visit requested start. Undefined local variable or method delegate.
Yeah. Okay. So we hadn't defined a delegate for the session. And actually in their code, we can't see where they defined a delegate for the session either, can we?
Well, look for it.
Protocol session delegate, no. Session, no, oh, there it is. Okay, so it's a session delegate. That's the protocol for the session delegate, which will have, you know, probably that method that's being called on it. Okay, once again, where was the session being set? Was it just in the app delegate?
Well, in the app delegate,
we create the session, right? New session.
Session. Where do we do that? Here, TurboLink.
TurboLink session new, yeah.
You don't specify delegate.
They never set the delegate for the session.
Well, let's go back to the quick start guide. I might have missed something. Thanks. Quick start guide. So at some point we'll want to add that, but don't need it yet. Understanding TurboLink's concepts. In your app delegate, create and retain a session. So this initializes a session. I don't see anything about.
Yeah, no, they don't set the delegate on the session.
Step 4, configure the sessions delegate. We need to keep reading. All right. The session notifies its delegate by proposing a visit whenever you tap a link. Also notifies its delegate when a visit request fails. Okay, so first, assign the session's delegate property. So we're just going to set it to our app delegate.
Okay. So we have to add the delegate here.
Actually, we need to add an adder accessor. Now that our session accepts a delegate.
Now, our app delegate is going to have to respond to session request did start, I think, is what we have in the code so far.
Yep. So we're going to implement on our app delegate a session did propose visit to URL with action, and a session did fail request for visitable with error. So we'll go back to our app delegate here and implement these. This looks an awful lot like that one, but I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Session did propose visit to URL, colon.
Yeah, you may have to lowercase, URL and lowercase it there. Yeah.
With action, colon, action. Okay, so we've successfully
Yes.
translated that Swift. Next one is session. We just accept this argument called session and name it session. Did fail request for visitable colon visitable. We don't have to specify the type. Say with error colon error. We don't type.
Okay. That is converting to standard UI alert controller. Dot add action, navigation controller, present view controller, alert animated true completion nil. With title. The preferred style will be one of the the constants.
Yeah, I never know what it's going to be.
No, that's once again one of those things I use Dash for.
There it is in the example. UI alert controller style alert.
Ah, okay.
Alert add action. UI alert action. Actually, now that I'm looking at this example, the method that I was calling here was wrong. It's alert controller with title. So preferred style, and then UI alert action dot action with title. Okay, style. UI alert action style default. Handler nil. That's fine. Navigation controller. Present view controller alert. Animated true completion nil. Okay, that should all work.
Yes.
So the part that we haven't implemented yet, maybe that's the next thing it's going to tell us, is that line that failed was this one here. Session did start request. So we haven't defined a session did start request. I'm guessing that's going to be the next thing we need to implement in our app delegate. And
yeah, it doesn't mention that.
Doesn't mention it.
Oh.
What?
So what they're showing there is they're just setting the network activity indicator.
Is that what that method was called? Session did start. Yep. So is this an optional? Implement the optional session did start request. So we didn't say that this was optional, the session did start request.
No.
So we need to say if we have a delegate and our delegate So it dot respond. I always forget if it's responds to or respond to.
Responds to, I think. I think it's, yeah, with the S.
To session did start request.
I don't know if it'll go further because we didn't see code that it was calling. It did die.
Undefined method responds to. So it might be respond to.
Sorry.
It's okay. I can never remember what it is. I would think that it should be responds to, but I think it would read better if it was, but I think it's one of those cases where it just doesn't, it's just not named that.
Yeah.
All right. We made it. We still see nothing.
Well, that's okay. I actually don't think that it's, you know, there's a number of things. You know, our view may be a 0 size because we didn't do any of the view constraints or anything, right? You know, we're not actually calling anything yet. I don't even know if you had actually the server running, right? But but it is, you know.
I'm wondering if we hit a path where we're supposed to implement it and we didn't implement anything yet.
Yeah, I think that there's, I mean, from when we keep going back into the Swift code, there's still a fair bit of code remaining to implement.
Well, this has been an enlightening exercise. I think gonna need to call it a night.
Yeah, we've been going for quite a while. Actually, personally, I enjoyed this because it was good to dig through it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a much better sense of converting from Swift into RubyMotion, which was something that I hadn't tried before.
Yeah.
So it's it was good. It was good. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for joining me.
So if we don't talk to you sooner, we'll talk to you again next month.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one.
Okay, bye.
Bye. And for everybody who tuned in, thanks for joining us. See you next time.